Hi, this is Ali Arango. In this tutorial, I'll take you through step by step on showing you how to make a human female body. In this tutorial, I'll not only explain what I'm doing, but I'll try to explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, thanks for taking a look at this tutorial, and I hope that you enjoy it. Hi, this is Ali Arango. Today I'm going to show you how to make a human female body in Blender 3.4. So let's get started. Okay, what you see on the screen is the result of another tutorial. I'll put a link up in the description so you can get to that tutorial. You don't need to have done that tutorial to do this tutorial. However, I do think it would be useful to you to have previously done the tutorial that I mentioned. Okay, I'm going to assume that most of you watching this tutorial have done the other tutorial. So what we're going to do is go to the upper right to where we see our outliner. These are the current reference images that are set up from the previous tutorial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck this check mark. I'm then going to take away these two, it looks like eyes, so that we don't see these images anymore. The very reason why you didn't currently see them is because you only see those images in orthographic view. If you look to your upper left, you can see we're in user perspective view. We're about to bring another reference image in to use to work on our human female body. And yeah, that other image, when I say images, that was basically what you see to the left here and just duplicate it. So that's what we're about to do now. Okay, before I show you how to bring this image in, I'll put this image on the screen. So what you can do is you can take a screenshot of this image to have it. I'll leave it there for a few seconds. Okay, nothing, super fancy. However, that will give us the proportions we need to work through making up this human female body. Okay, the way we're going to bring in this picture is we're going to hold Shift, press A. We'll go to Image. I'll select Background. You have all of these different options to select to bring your image in. I know it's in this folder here, so I'll select here, select the picture, and then I'll select Load Background Image. Okay, when this picture first comes in, what you can do is just go right to the edge of the corner to drag to make the scale bigger. You could also press S because it's easy to do. I'm just dragging. One of the things that I don't often hear talked about when people work in 3D or some other kind of art is what your basic thinking mode should be. My basic thinking mode, what I mean by thinking mode is your way of like what is your basic way of planning to do things. Like how do you go about doing things in the most general sense? Because I tend to do my plan for my work is not just to make a model. Most of the time it's to make a model, texture it, rig it, animate it. I tend to think in speed. The reason why I'm telling you that is I just mentioned to you, you can click the side here, or you can press S to scale. One of the things in Blender that can be difficult is there's a lot of different options, and of those different options, a lot of times there's not a right or a wrong, it's just what you choose to do. So I for myself, I try to choose what is generally going to go fastest. So anyway, what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the size of his head and make it basically be the size of that head there. That's what I'm thinking about as I'm doing this. So this image is currently selected. When you look to the outliner, see this is image.002, right? Because this is selected, that's why we're able to take these arrows here. This right here is the move tool. That's why we're able to slide this around. So I'm sliding this over to the side, right? Now when I slide this over, this being the picture that I'm currently selected on, I want to be able to work with this. I don't want to have the geometry here replacing the picture. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to make sure we have the image selected. And then we want to go down to this picture here, select that, or this button here, it's Object Data Properties. You want to go to Depth and change this to Front. When I clicked Front, now you can see the picture through everything else, right? You don't want that, so what you want to do is look to where you see this opacity, put a check mark there, and then lower the opacity down. And you want to lower it down to the point where you can see your geometry as well as see your picture. What you want to think about now is you're trying to line this picture up so that we can work with symmetry, or you want this picture here to match up where this is even. Like you can work on one side and have that work on the other side. So what I'm going to do is roll the mouse wheel in. I'm selecting the hand to pan. I left click and drag. This allows me to pan there. I also will tend to pan by holding Shift as well as the middle mouse button. Pretty much does the same thing as the hand. They're both useful to know as far as panning your image. Currently I have the image selected. You can see this because there's an orange highlight around the picture. You can also see here we have it selected. You can also see that this isn't, like, we want this center line to be in the center of the body, right? So with this selected, I'm going to drag this over. And for the most part, this looks like this is now in the center of the body. When I say this, I'm talking about the picture that we're currently selected on. Okay, so now that we have the basic size for this setup, what we want to do is, with this picture selected, we can tell it's selected because there's an orange line going around here. What we want to do is, I rolled the mouse wheel to zoom back. We want to hold Shift and then press D, right? Shift D, there we go. Typically I'll move my mouse, like I press Shift D and left click or anything, I'll move my mouse, right? I do that so I know that I duplicated the picture. I'll then right click, right, to get this to jump back to its original position. Right clicking Blender, a lot of times when you're doing action, it's kind of like almost like a quick undo. This picture is called empty.003. I can see this because I'm looking at this in the outliner to the right. With this picture selected, what I'm going to do is select, we're currently in the front orthographic view, right? You can see this by looking to the upper left. I'm going to go down to our viewport menu, select right, and then with that picture, this empty.003, I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z-axis 90, and then I'll left click to lock in that rotation. Okay, so with this image rotated to the side, we should be able to just, with the image selected, take the move tool and then slide this into place. Just like that. Doesn't have to be perfect, by the way. This is a reference to help you with proportions, things like that. Anyway, with this setup now, you should be able to select front and see things from the front, as well as right and see things from the right. So we're going to go back to the front view. Okay, now that we have our picture set up, let's make them so we can't just select them and easily move them out of place. So we're still currently selected on this empty.003. That's, you can see it highlighted here. It looks like a line because it's turned to the side. Let's select the arrow there, then select empty.002, then select the arrow there. If you don't see this arrow, see this filter here, you click here, then you select arrow, and that will allow you to have the ability to turn the arrow on, which allows you to select things, or turn them off, which allows you to not select things. If you made it this far into the tutorial already with the reference being set up, each person, you know, people tend to have their place on YouTube for their thing. I do a lot of tutorials on this channel. I would say one of my places on YouTube is I tend to try to explain things as thoroughly as I can. I at least attempt to, not going to say I always do. I'm just saying that, like, if you've never seen any videos in this channel and you're like, wow, this guy, he said so much, whether that you like that or you don't like that, that's my style. Anyway, The objects that I tend to use, there's multiple ways you can set up, making a body. This is my personal style. I find that using subdivided cubes works very well. I watched this learned this from trial and error, watching lots of YouTube tutorials. So that's how we're going to go through this. So this right here, by the way, this circle here, this is where the 3D cursor is at. This is important because objects tend to come into where this 3D cursor is at. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hold shift, we're going to press A. This brings up our add to menu. We're going to go to mesh, right? It's also important that I didn't click anything yet. If you look up above where my mouse is at, you can see we're in object mode, all right? So we're bringing this into object mode, which is where you want to be at. You're then going to go to cube. So now we have this cube that we just brought in. You can see it came in right where the 3D cursor was at, or is at. Okay, what we want to do with this cube is we want to take this cube, place it basically here, duplicate it. That's like the rib cage area. Duplicate it, make the waist area. Duplicate it, make this lower torso area, right around the hip area, right? All right, so we're going to push this down. We're going to press S to scale this up, all right? What we're going to do now is we're going to look to the right, select what looks like the wrench. This gives us access to our modifiers. We'll select the arrow. We'll go to subdivision surface. This increases our geometry. This will give us what we want. When you see the subdivision surface, you see these options for this. See the levels viewpoint port. You want to change this to 2. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to select the hand to pan. Zoom in by rolling the mouse wheel. I'm going to press S to scale. When I'm scaling this up to get the top part of this with the this line here on the reference art, and then this basically I'm looking at the rib cage there. All right, so this is how I want it to be. Okay, what we're going to do now is with this selected, we're going to hold Shift, press D. That duplicated that cube. I'm going to right click, right? I could have left clicked as well to lock in the duplication. So now what I'm going to do is push this down into the this waist area here. I'm going to press S to scale. It's important, by the way, that we're working in a front orthographic view. Look to your upper left. You can see we're in a front orthographic view. The typically 2 views we'll probably talk about as we work through this is perspective view as well as front orthographic view. Front orthographic view is kind of like a straight on view. It also allows you to see the reference. It also sets up the way that certain things work as far as rotation. By the way, when I make objects, see how they're changing colors. If you're like, why are the objects changing colors? It's because in this particular viewport, and the settings are viewport specific. If I click here, whoops, sorry. If I click here, see I have this matte cap set up, and then I have this random. This random is what is making the colors switch when I make new objects. So with this selected, I'm going to go to this viewport. This is a viewport that we're using to help us have a different view of what we're working on. I'm going to hold middle mouse button to rotate the view slightly in that viewport. And when you hover over a viewport, your tools basically are kind of like active in that viewport. So with my mouse over this viewport, with this selected on, I'm going to hold Shift. I'm then going to press D to duplicate. I'm going to right click. I'm then going to push this down. And I'm pushing this down basically to set up to cover up this area right here. Okay, so with this still selected, I'm going to press S to scale. When I scale up, basically what I'm thinking is, see the bottom part here? I want that to basically be here. This is like I'm limiting my scale. I want this to be, I'm thinking of this edge as going like here, basically. However, this this doesn't have to be exactly there, and you'll see why, how the shapes overlap. So this is the scale that I want. With this selected now, what I'm going to do is hold Shift, press D, right click, move this over, right? I'm going to push this down. I'm going to press S to scale this down. We're setting up to make the leg. I'm going to go to the upper right, select the hand to pan up. I'll zoom back slightly. I'm going to press S to scale. on the Z axis. See that line? When I press Z, see the line that went up? That line is kind of showing me like a preview of like what I'm going to do. So I'll move this down into position. Like that. I'm going to go to this view and select this. I'm going to move off of this, hold the middle mouse button to rotate. By the way, I can rotate by left clicking here as well. Okay, remember we talked about how we can set up things to work on both sides. Like that's why we have this, like we tried to get this to the middle, this being this picture, reference picture. So with this selected here, right, what we want to do is we're going to go to add modifier. We're going to select mirror, right? And what this is going to do is this modifier will copy this object to this side, right? The reason why it isn't copied to the other side right now is because of this mirror object. When you put a mirror modifier on, typically it will it'll mirrored towards the origin point. I believe it's the origin point. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to select a mirror object, right? The head is called sphere, so we're going to press S. We're going to select the sphere. And when I selected that sphere, the head, basically, this leg is mirrored to the other side. The reason why it's mirrored well is because the head is in the center of the scene. So that works out well for us. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make the knee in the lower part of the leg. I'm going to zoom back. With this selected, we're going to hold Shift, press D, right click. We'll push this down. We're looking at the width of the knee, right? Which you want to think about when you scale. Don't move this to match up the reference to the side. Just keep your geometry going straight up and down for now. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis. Right? Good. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click. I'm going to push this down. Press S to scale this up. S to scale on the Z axis. Looking at the knee right now. So I want the knee to show. That's what I'm doing right here. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis to bring this up away from the ankle. I'm not moving this to match the reference image yet. All right, so be aware of that. I'm using the reference image as far as the length, so it's useful, but I'm not trying to make this go out to the side to match it there. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a new cube to make this foot right here, and this will be mirrored to the other side. See where the 3D cursor is at? We're about to bring an object in. So I'm going to hold Shift, press A, right? When you go to Mesh, we're bringing in a cube. So there's the cube. I'm going to push this cube down, move this to the side here like that. Go to the wrench, click Add Modifier, select Mirror. Mirror object. I'm going fast here because we already did this. All right. You also can use the YouTube options. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can use that to slow the video down. Anyway, I'm going to click here, press S to scale, and then select sphere. My videos tend to be on the longer side, so when I can speed up, I'll try to speed up. Anyway, we'll push this down into place there. I'm going to go to this window here, roll my mouse wheel to zoom back. Okay. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. We're going to go to, with these cubes here selected, we're going to go to edit mode. Here in edit mode, the way you manipulate geometry in edit mode is by vertices, edges, as well as faces. So if you look to your upper left, we're on face select. We're going to select this face. This is mirrored, so whatever we do here will be done there. We'll go to the upper left, select our move tool. We're going to pull this out like that. One thing that's very useful, I find, that you spend a lot of time in Blender manipulating your view, getting around, zooming in, zooming out. Shift B is extremely useful. That's what I just pushed. And then you, after pressing Shift B, you draw a box and you'll zoom into whatever you're looking at. You wouldn't think it would help that much. It actually helps a lot, I find. Anyway, I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to hold Control, hold R. Just put a loop cut in. When my mouse is down here, it doesn't look like there's a loop cut, right? I move my mouse up. There's a loop cut. I'm going to roll my mouse one time. There's 2 loop cuts. I'm going to left click once. Left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. I'm going to go to the upper left, make sure I'm on face select. Remember, we select in edit mode, vertices, edges, as well as faces. That's how we work. We're on face mode, face select currently. We select here. I'm on my move tool. I'm going to push this down like this. Then what I'm going to do is basically we're going to put a subdivision surface on here. When we put that subdivision surface on here, this is going to round this out, right? It's going to take away a lot of what you see right here. I want the bottom of this foot to be flat for the most part, right? So what we want to do is we're going to hold Control, press R. There's the loop cut. I click one time. Because I click one time, I can still move the loop cut, right? So I move the loop cut down, not all the way. Move it down like this. Then I left click a second time. And by putting this loop cut here, this close to this edge will basically make this not totally flat. If we push this loop all the way down, this would be like a sharp edge flat. We don't want that. We just want this somewhat flat. So that's what that should do right there. For now, as strange as this looks, that's fine. We're going to left click to deselect. We're going to go to back up to the upper left and then go back to object mode. Okay, what we're going to do is look to our modifier panel. Here's the wrench. We're going to go to Add Modifier, Subdivision Surface. That's what I talked about. Like you can see how this smooth this out. We're going to go to Levels Viewport. We're going to change this to 2. We're going to go back to our front view by selecting this front button here. We're going to press S to scale on the X axis. See the preview there? Showing us like that's the correct axis. We're going to go to our right view by clicking the right button. We're not going to line this up currently. However, we can see that this, we can make this not as long. So we're going to press S to scale on the Y axis. There we go. We'll select front to go back to the front view. Okay, I'm going to go up to the hand to pan. I'm going to left click to drag down. I'm going to roll my mouse to zoom out. You can use this to zoom as well, by the way. Like if I left click here and drag down or up, we can zoom using this. This is nice because this often gives you a smooth zoom as well. I really like these things. You can also rotate here just by left clicking and dragging. I probably said it before. I don't hear people make much use of this. However, these are very nice. I'm very glad that Blender has these options in here for manipulating the view, since a big part of 3D is very often manipulating your view. So I'm going to left click the hand, drag this down. We're going to work on the chest area. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to take a look to the side. All right, so here's the deal with this chest. Let's click here. We'll go back to front view. What we're going to want to do is we're going to go to the upper left. We're going to go to edit mode, right? Here in edit mode, I'm going to hold Control, press R. I'm going to put in 2 loop cuts, right? So I move my mouse. I roll the mouse one time. Now we have these 2 loop cuts, right? We'll left click once, left click a second time, right? We want a loop cut here now. So we're going to hold Control, press R to put another loop cut in. If it doesn't line up right, you might have to move your mouse. Left click a second time to lock that in. Okay, when you look over this window, you can see like what the subdivisions, I mean not the subdivisions, what the loop cuts did. That's fine. What we want to do is be on edge select. Remember in edit mode we work with vertices, edges, or faces, right? So we want to be on edge select. We'll select this edge. I'll hold the middle mouse button so you can see this. Basically, the reason why we're doing this is we're trying to get like that rib cage look that you have with a torso. If you look to your upper right, you're going to see this X, Y, Z. In sculpt mode, you tend to use something called symmetry. Here we have legs needs things being put on the other side using a mirror modifier. Here inside of edit mode, we can use this XYZ. So we'll select X here. When I click this X, whatever I do to this side, now this doesn't work. It doesn't work totally, but it largely does work. What I do here will happen to the other side. So I'm on edge select. The reason why I'm doing this is I want to smooth this out right here. So I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. When I select here, I push this down slightly like that. We can use this, kind of see what's going on, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to right view. With this right view, we're going to press A to, well, you know what? I don't want to, I'd rather do this out. So I'm going to go to object mode out here because I did it inside there. What I'm doing is, see this area right here? I want you to pay attention to that, all right? And pay attention to this tilt. So right now, this object is like straight up and down. What we want to do is narrow this object down as far as front to back, and then we want to put this slight tilt. So see the angle kind of like that? That's what we want. So we're going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this, right? So this is tilted. We're kind of like aiming for that, right? S to scale on the Y axis, tilt. So now what we're going to do is R to rotate like this. Ignore this for now. This doesn't have to be exact, but this is our general guide. Hold the mouse button to go towards the front. Let's go back to edit mode. We'll select here. We'll push this in, something like this. Let's go to the front reference. And we can see we need to bring this down like that. This edge I'm looking here, we need to push this over. We can look there as well. Select here, push this over. Okay, something that helps me as far as working with the torso is we're going to go to face select. That's what I'm about to show you. We're going to select here, hold shift. When we hold shift, we can select more than one face at a time. I'm going to press E to extrude, right? Left click, extrude generally makes more geometry. So we press E to extrude, right? And I'm going to press S to scale that extrusion down like that. Holding the middle mouse button, I'm holding it to like get a 3D look to kind of help to see what I'm doing. When I press E to extrude, see the preview line that's going there? It's going like right on that angle that we made the torso. That's what I want. So I'm going to push this up like that, not too much. And now this isn't totally necessary. It tends to help me as far as working on this. So you can see this shape right here, like this like kind of gray around it. If you didn't want that, you could go to your subdivision surface, click here. I tend to like it. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I do. Like having this extra shape here. Okay, we're going to go to the upper left, go to object mode. This here is in the center, all right? Remember this. Good for you to know. One of the things nice about making tutorials is I've made up bodies numerous times. I've spent a lot of time practicing pretty much over the last year. This is my second YouTube tutorial that I've made in a while. One of the things about this nice about making tutorials is it makes you think because you have to explain it, right? It's good for me. I think it's good for you to know this. So this right here, this torso, when we went into edit mode, which we're in object mode now, we set up symmetry for this, right? We're about to go into the leg. The leg is not in the center. This leg here is the real object. This is a mirrored object. So when we go on to work on this object, this leg, because it's not a centerpiece, because this is mirrored, we're not going to have to turn it on symmetry in edit mode, because what we do here on this side will be mirrored on that side because of the mirror. So when I click here, see the mirror. So I think that's good to know. Like okay, well, why does this have symmetry? And why does this not have symmetry? It's because of this mirror here. Okay, before we move on with the legs. Let's deal with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to right view. We're going to press S to scale on the Y axis, right? See how this is tilted that way? It's kind of like this, very similar with here. So with this, so this was straight up and down right here, right? And we tilted it that way. This is straight up and down here. That's why I'm kind of like, if you can kind of see this, like this being the top, this being the bottom, we're going to tilt this way. So we're going to press R to rotate, right? When you tilt something, if you want to scale, like what if I press S to scale on the Z axis, see that right there? That's not what we want. I want to scale like the direction I was before. If I press Z a second time, see that? So now I can scale this like that, which is nice. I'm going to make this wider like that, so I'll press S to scale Y twice. There we go. Since we're here, we'll move this like this. We'll press S to scale on the Z axis. S to scale on the Y axis. Doesn't have to be exact. Let's go back to the front. S to scale on the Z axis here. S to scale on the X axis there. Move this down some. We're going to click here. Go to edit mode. We're going to go through this quick. We're going to hold control, press R, put a loop cut in, left click, move this slightly up, left click a second time. We're going to select. We're in phase select. We're going to press S to scale this some there. Push that down. We'll press S to scale this here. That. Go back to the front. We're going to go back to object mode. Select here. Same thing. Go to edit mode. Hold control. Press R. Put a loop cut in. I'm moving this loop cut in because I want to see how the calf like bulges out there. And press S to scale. Select here. Press S to scale almost to a point there. Back to front view. I'll go back to object mode. Okay, here we're going to select this. We're going to press Shift D, right click, press S to scale on the X axis like this. We're going to hold the middle mouse button, rotate the view. We're going to push this forward like that. Go back to our front view. Move that down some, press this X to scale like that on the side. Here we're going to go to front, go to right view. That's basically right here. This is like abdominal muscles. Pretty easy way to kind of shape them to get them there. We're going to go to our right view. With this here, we're going to press R to rotate on the X axis. Move this back. Leave this thigh so it's pushing there. We'll select here. We'll move this back some. Keep it for the most part in line with that. Select this. Move this back some like that. Select this. Move this back like this. Move this up. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, 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 pop. Pop, 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 pop. Okay, what we're going to do is hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. What we're going to do is bring in some new shapes. So we're going to hold Shift, press A. We're going to go to that Shift A brought in is our Add to menu. So we go to Mesh, Cube. Here's our cube. We're going to move this to the side. We're going to go to our modifier. We're going to put a mirror modifier on this. For the mirror object, we're going to select here. We'll press S to select the sphere, which is basically the head. We're going to add a subdivision surface modifier to this. Change the levels viewport to 2. Now that we have this, what we want to do is we're going to hold Shift, press D, that duplicated the cube. I'm going to left click this time to get this to lock into place. I'm going to move this down to about here. I'm going to select here. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, left click. I could have right clicked like I did in the past. Left click or right click works fine here. I'm going to move this to the side to here like that. Okay, so what are these shapes? What these shapes are is these are actually going to be turned into the woman's breast. This is going to help for the shape of the hips going up to the sides. So let's go here first. So we're going to select this, push this down, push this into place. Let's go to the right view. We'll push this forward. We'll go back to the front view. I'm going to lower right to do this. We're going to go to, with this selected, this cube with the subdivisions on it, we'll select the upper left, go to edit mode. Here we can see, I'm rolling the mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm going to select the hand to pan down. Looks like a box, right? What you want to do here is you're going to make sure you're on face select. Select the top part of this cube, right? You're going to pull this up like this. Then you're going to press S to scale this down. So push this down, something like that. This, I'm going to select here, press S to scale this up some. I'll left click to deselect. I'll go back to the upper left, go to object mode. Okay, we're going to go to the lower right, select right. We're going to press R to rotate. We're able to rotate like this, right? Without being concerned about axes, like X, Y, or Z axes, because we're on the right orthographic and you look to the upper left, you can see that. This doesn't have to be perfect. We're putting this in the basic position. You can look here to help. That's fine. For there, I'm going to select front to go back to front view. This looks good where it's at. I'm going to go to the hand, left click to drag the pan. This basically here is set up to be a shoulder. This is set up to help with the hips. So I'm going to select this. Okay, I'm going to push this over with the move tool, move this up. If I zoom in, see like this shape right here. It's kind of like the hourglass shape you kind of see. So I'm pushing this in. I don't want to push this really into the other there. I'm going to press, when I say other, I'm talking about this other cube. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis like that. Move this up like this. I'm going to go to the upper left, go to edit mode. Here we're going to hover here. We're going to put in 5 loop cuts. I'm going to hold control, press R. Move your mouse if you need to see the loop cut. You're going to roll once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and left click to lock that in. Left click a second time to lock that in. Turning to the side so we can kind of see like a 3D view or see a 3D view. Go pretty much to the center. Move. I'm holding the middle mouse button, rotate, going back towards the front so we can push this in. We'll left click on nothingness to deselect. All right, we're going to go back to object mode. Go to right view. Push this up. We'll press S to scale on the Y axis like that. To shrink it down. Move this like here. It doesn't have to be exact. I know it looks kind of crazy from right there. Don't let that get you. I'm looking here. We're putting in shapes we can, refine them later. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, rotate here. Pretty much what I want to do is focus on the torso, the legs, and then come to work with the shoulders and arms more later on. Okay, I'm going to hold Alt, press A. That's another way of deselecting. Sometimes you can push double click on nothingness to deselect. Other times I'll hold Alt A to deselect. I'm going to hold Shift, press A to bring in our Add To menu. I'm going to select Cube to bring a cube in. Move this to the side. Very similar to what we did before. I'm going to the modifier menu. I am selecting, actually let's do a mirror modifier first. Then we'll select a subdivision surface modifier. We'll go to level viewports 2. For the mirror object, we'll press S. This lets us bring up the sphere, so we selected that. So I'm going to push this down like that. Okay, we're going to go to right view. We'll pull this back here. Let's actually press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Move this down. Take a wild guess what we're about to make. Press the R to rotate. We're going to hold the middle mouse button to go like this. We'll push this into place here. Pull that back slightly. Let's see what this looks like from the reference. Okay. So I just push that for the reference up. We'll move this out to the side, something like this. Roll the mouse wheel. I'll go to the hand to pan. And press S to scale on the Z axis like that. Not Z, sorry. That's the X axis. S to scale on X axis, I'm sorry. And again, where this is, long story short for us for later. Okay. Okay, we're going to bring in another object. We're going to hold Shift. We're going to press A. This brings up our Add To menu. We're going to go to Cube. Push this down. This is basically going to be trap muscles. So think neck muscles. We'll press S to scale on the X axis like this. We'll go to edit mode. Select here. Push that in like that. Select here. Go to the symmetry. It's important. I just went to symmetry. Don't miss that. I clicked here. This is important because when I push this, I want this on the other side to move. If I didn't push this, it won't move. So make sure you push that. So we're kind of getting like a triangle shape basically here for the trap muscles. We can go to front view. I see them there. Let's go to the box, a face select, back to front view. We'll use a reference. We will push this down to there. Let's go to edge select there. Basically push that in. We're going to actually raise this front part up slightly higher. Let's go to right view. That's right. This is the back, not the front, so we'll bring this like this. So we're going to go to add modifiers, subdivision surface. You can see what that did. Look at that. Look how much that took. So we'll add level 2. We'll move this up some like that. Let's look at our front reference. Press S to scale to make this slightly wider. I'm rolling the middle mouse button to zoom. Hold this, go back to the front. I'll left click to deselect. Yeah, I'll select here. Go to edit mode. Go back to face select. Bring this out some like that. remember, we're going to refine this more. Okay, I'm going to left click to deselect, roll the mouse wheel to zoom back some. Okay, as far as refining the shapes, remember this is for shoulders here. I'll select the hand and pan up. As far as refining the shapes, we can do this in different ways. You could do it object by object like this. Typically going in sculpt mode. I'm going to join these together. You can still pretty much do the same thing in sculpt mode. So that's what I'm going to do. So the plan is to apply the modifiers and then join all these together in sculpt mode, and then put these together to form our basic block out. Once we have that, we'll move on to sculpting to defining the features even more. Okay, so what we're going to do is left click and drag to select these shapes. I do not want the neck at this point. Oops, I'm going to hold shift. Don't want that either. Yeah. Left click to deselect. Let's try this again. It still grabbed the neck. That's kind of funny. Alright, so that's actually not funny, but frustrating, so I laughed. I don't know. Hold the middle mouse button. There we go. I kept holding shift until it deselected, right? Alright, so I have all these objects selected, right? I want to apply the modifiers for this. Pretty sure in old versions of Blender you could not do this. Now you have all the objects. You select apply. And that's excellent. They're all... Wait a second. And because I said that to you, right? I thought it applied, and it did not. It's interesting. Okay, so so it applied the mirror. So again, it did apply. Okay, it did apply them. Okay. I don't want the neck. There we go. I grabbed like lower, the next like going in here. That's how I dodge that. I'm gonna hold shift to select this piece here, right? So we have all these pieces selected. This currently is the active object. The way I know this is because this is lighter, right? These are darker, lighter. I want these to the chest just because I just do. So I'm gonna hold shift, select the chest. Now that I let go of shift, this is the lighter object now. I'll hold control, press J. So now they're all one object. Okay, if you're thinking like how much time it took to do this, it's called basically a block out. Like, why did I do this? When sometimes you'll see other people working on models. They'll make a UV sphere and they'll just sculpt the whole thing out from that. I think if you're a 3D generalist, if you're on this channel, if you've been on this channel for a while, most of the time when I'm making something, I'm making it because I plan to have it move, right? If you're doing just a sculpt, you don't have to have it move. And if you're mainly sculpting, you might want to focus on just, going right for the sphere, going into this. When you have your time split between, box modeling, sculpting, rigging, animating, I think this is a good way to go. I think it makes the models look better. Okay, we're about to go into sculpting. Before we do that, typically in Blender, when you're about to go into sculpting, after doing what we did all this like box modeling stuff, right? You'll see a message in Blender that says a uniform scale is not right. It might affect sculpting. That message that'll pop up near the bottom of Blender does tend to be true. All right. With this selected, I'm going to go to the item button over here. Look, see this location, rotation, scale. See all these numbers, how they're all over the place, right? That's currently like correlating to this model. So to have Blender not say like your scale, like your uniform scale is off, or you might have issues in sculpting. What you do is hold Control, press A. That was Control A. See this apply, and it says location, rotation, scale. See that the top there, how it matches up. So look at the numbers. I didn't click the button yet. Watch when I click the button. All transforms. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, going down. So that's why you want to do that. Apply all transforms. Okay, we're going to go to the upper left. We're going to go to scope mode. We're going to select the elastic deform brush. If you don't see your tools lined up like this, because Blender typically has them like this, hover here, pull this to the side. I find that this makes it easier to work with the tools. I have elastic deform brush selected. I am going to go to tool. I'm going to pull this out to the side so I can see this better. Pay attention to this part right here. This is very important. I'm going to go to advanced. Here in advanced, right, in the tool brush settings on elastic deform, I'm going to select topology and then mesh boundary. This will allow us to work with these shapes where we can just select one shape, adjust it, select the other shape, adjust it. Even though we're all in one object, each of the shapes are still separate, so we can quickly adjust the different shapes. So I'm going to go to view. So I can have my view box back. Push this to the side, somewhat like that. Okay, let's go to front view. We'll zoom in. See that dot? The dot's very important. Wherever the dot's on, it's going to affect that. Extremely useful and nice that that is in Blender. So we'll move this over here fairly quickly. I'll move to another object. It might be hard to see. I'm paying attention to that dot right in the center there. The legs here. The knees. See the dots on there. This here, sometimes you'll find that, like if I try to use this to adjust this, I'm probably going to have an issue. I'm going to press F to shrink my brush down. So this is probably better. Things like this off, and they're off because of how I set them up. It's probably better to go into, let's see. Sometimes better to go into edit mode. Interesting. All right, so I'm like, that's getting out of control very quickly. We're going to go into edit mode. And here in edit mode, what I'll do is I'll select a face here, right? And then what I'm going to do is press the O key. This is the proportional editing tool. This allows you to adjust more than one edge, face, or more than one vertice, edge, or face in Blender. I can go here. Nope, that's not it. Wait a second. Wondering where are my oh, okay. I was wondering, I'm like, where are my options? Sorry. So I want connected only. I'm gonna press G. When I press G, this allows me to see that circle. When I roll my mouse, that's making the circle grow. And I'm able to pretty easily move those, almost like sculpting, move these faces generally into place. Kind of whacked out there. Let's go back to sculpting. And what we can do here is, in sculpting, when you hold the shift brush, you automatically smooth. See that? So a lot of that was fixed by the smooth brush. Very nice. Okay, so back to our elastic deform. I tried this. I thought this would work in here. It didn't. So I'm pushing this geometry, not trying to be super perfect, but towards the reference. I'll go to the right, same thing, so like the leg here. Pay attention to the dot, where that dot is at. Let's go up. this. Pay attention to the dot. Pull that up. This in. That's why I want to come in there. You can just quickly go from each thing pretty quickly. Pay attention to your image over here. Not constantly. Just glance at it from time to time. You'll find that it'll tend to help you. You can zoom in and out to make things easier. Come back up here. Over. And attention to the dot. Coming along pretty nicely, I think, anyway. I zoom in here. I want this to come out. So I left clicked and dragged. I want that coming forward so I can see it. It's basically abdominal muscles. Pulling them like this. Going to the side. So nice, that dot. Pulling this back some. You have this here is that what we put in for the hips. Let's go to front view. I'm kind of trying to like separate them. Doesn't have to be exact, by the way. See this here. Go here. I'll actually over pull this out so I can see this here and push this in. These are abdominal muscles there. I'm gonna select the hand to pan down. Let's go to front view. This right here, see the neck there. So what we want to do is drag this down. Push this in. Grab this. Careful. Push it in some there. Bring this down some here. Go to the right view. Go back to front view. This here, we'll press F to make this bigger. Pull these to the side. Move this up. Push this. Shrink your brush. This part up here, you want to be not as puffy. Okay, the legs are very close together. We're about to remesh this. I'll explain that. So what we want to do is go to edit mode to prepare for that. So we're on face select. You can see in edit mode, we tend to work by vertices, edges, as well as faces. What we're going to do is go to front view. I'm going to right over this hip area here, right? We're still in edit mode. I'm going to hold control and then right click. Oops, that didn't do it. Go to object mode. Here we go. Hold control. What am I thinking of? Shift. Okay, sorry, shift right. Shift right. Right. We want the 3D cursor right there. And then we're going to go up here. Useful to know. And we're going to say we want to rotate on the 3D cursor. So we're going to go back to edit mode. I'm going to hover here, and then I'm going to, with face select on, I'm going to press L, then L, then L. And what that does, L selects whatever piece of geometry you're over. So these are 3 pieces here, and we have this here, this 3D cursor, so we can rotate on that, right? So what we're going to do is press R to rotate. Let's shrink this down. Like that. Don't let this concern you. I'll show you how to deal with that. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Go back to the upper left, go back to object mode. We're going to, I think it's, what is it? Here we go. Object mode. Well, that's interesting. It's taking me back in. Shift C. There we go. Shift C, put the 3D cursor right back to its original position. Okay, we're going to go to the upper left, go to sculpt mode. Why did I tell you not to be concerned about this? Because you can go to your upper right, go to tools, look down to where you see symmetry. See it there? Symmetry. Click the arrow, scroll down. This minus X to plus X typically means to make this side look like that side. We want the opposite. So we're going to go to plus X to minus X. Then we're going to select symmetricize. And now you can see this side looks like that leg, which is what we wanted. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. You can see we have an issue here. And what that gets you, that will pretty simple to deal with. Before we deal with that, let's deal with this. We're going to zoom in, grab here, pull this over. We'll go to the inflate. I want to bring this closer together. So I'm trying to aim. I'll make this bigger. Go back to here. Like that. This right here, the way you can tell this is down, these muscles are down far enough. If you look to the front, they should be slightly showing from the front. So I'm going to go here, drag down, kind of like that. That's about right. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. That's how I'm rotating the view. Okay, as far as that issue in the back, currently these different shapes they look like they're connected, but they're not. They're separated. Basically, what we're about to do is remesh. Remesh will connect these shapes. So when I say connect, right, this shape does not just stop right here, all right? This shape has its own shape even inside of this other shape. Once we remesh, this shape will stop here like of itself, and there'll be one shape, right? And then that will allow us to deal with that, right? So in Blender, very nice thing you can do, press Shift R, and when you press Shift R, that allows you to set the resolution. For now, we're just going to press Control R, and very quickly you can see like these edges here. That's because Blender just all these shapes are now one that quick. So now when we go here, because these shapes are one, we can zoom in here. I can press F, hold Shift. Shift, when you hold Shift, it automatically makes things smooth. You can see how this is like, that's what I mean, easy to deal with. So I'm smoothing that out, taking that pan to pan. Same thing right here. There we go. Hold the middle mouse button to go towards the front. Select the hand to pan down, hold back to take a look. Okay, so now that we have that done, what we can do is remesh again, right? Before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to smooth. So see this right here? I'll show you how we can get rid of that very quickly. In Blender, in sculpt mode, you can use something called the smooth modifier. So we'll select smooth. These are the smooth modifier options. Typically, I'll use it with 0.5 or 1. For now, we're going to change this to 1. We're going to set the the factors for 1. We're going to set the repeat to 5. And you can see the effects of that right there, right? See that? We can look up here and see that this is 24,000 polygons. The way I got to that is that here? There we go. So when you see these two circles, you click to the right of here. This statistics is how I see those numbers right there. So you can see here, just having that smooth things out a lot for us. It's like the hand to pan. I'm going to take this smoothing up to 8. I want things smooth, but I don't want them so smooth that I can't see the shapes. However, I like how that is. I'm going to select apply. Okay, so we're going to go through and define our shapes. This is where it helps to know some basic anatomy. Also use reference. You can change this out to being a picture to look at. I'm pretty sure I said in the beginning we're going to change this out and I didn't do it. To change this out, you would click here, open image, and you can bring in whatever image you want. This has been there so long, I'll leave it there for now. This right here, this is going to, I find that it makes things easier to actually harden shapes. That makes sense before you smooth them again. I'm going to press F to change the size of my brush. That's how you change the size of your brush. I don't know if I said that earlier. I'm going to hold control. I'm going to go to this actually. This crease brush is what you use a lot. This is probably very effective tool at making hard shapes in Blender. So I'm going to select here. So what I want to do is harden this shape like here. So I'm holding control. The crease brush normally goes in. When it pushes in, it makes like a line, like it digs in. When you hold crease, it does the opposite, so it tends to be very good for making things sharp. So I'm holding control and the left mouse button, and that's how you can see that hard shape coming up there. That's from me holding control. Okay, I'm going to take the crease without holding control. Digging in there, there's a shape here where I'm going to kind of like go around here, like this hip area shape. So I'm not holding control. Now I'm going to hold control, kind of help to define that. So I'm off of the crease, I'm in from the crease, defining this shape. I'm not holding control. Now I was holding control. When I make things sharp, I hold control. Not holding control. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. There's a sartorius muscle that comes right here, right? It comes down like this. So I'm not holding control to basically put that muscle in. Or that indentation for the muscle anyway. If you're like, how come you don't put up a thing right there? On YouTube, a lot of times they'll like talk about you, whether you own images or not. I could draw it out. It's been a while since I made tutorials, so I want to trying to get back into making tutorials. So I'm going to keep going. You can load your own reference image and put it in here if you need extra help besides what I'm showing you as far as like right here. For here, we want the basics here. Go to here. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to go to the crease tool. I'm going to put a crease right down the center of the back. There's these bones that stick out. So I'm going to, with the crease tool selected, I'm going to hold control. They're kind of like, they kind of go diagonal here. I'll press F to shrink my brush. And they go diagonal down away from here. Aim up towards the shoulders. I'm going to take the mouse, move this up. I mean, take the hand. Looking at the calf here, I selected inflate, makes things inflate like a tire. I did inflate the calves here because it looked kind of flat. Too much, I'll hold shift. More concerned about this inside part. Looks like there's like a little hole thing there, right, in the mesh. Things like this can cause you a lot of issues. To get rid of that, we're going to remesh. Remesh is when you bring multiple shapes together. That's what we did to join these shapes together before. There's a thing in Blender. This is very important. Pay attention to this. I'm going to hold shift and press R. This activates this plane where you can see what will happen when we remesh. We're not remeshing yet. This plane shows you how to set the resolution for when you remesh. Take a look to the upper left where you see faces. It says generally 24,000 faces, right? That's the current geometry. Once we remesh, after we increase this geometry, which we're about to, those are the squares. I don't pay so much attention to the number. I look at the squares. So when I move my mouse, watch. See this? The square is getting smaller, right? So I'm going to left click. When I left click, I didn't do the remesh. What I did was I locked in for the resolution set up by those squares. I'm now going to hold control, which I'm not doing yet. I'm about to do it. And then when I press control R, we'll remesh, and you'll see when you look to the upper left those faces, you'll see that number increase. So control R, I just remeshed, the number went to 38,000. With it at 38,000, I'm going to take this hand, move this up, go here, hold shift, and with the remesh, it's very easily able to get rid of that little thing, that depression I didn't like. Okay, let's go to front view. Obviously our legs are out of place. We can look at some of the other stuff. For the most part, it looks decent. One thing we can do is we'll go to the hand. You can basically draw lines in with the draw brush. So what I do is press F. We'll look here. Roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm going to make these clavicles go up a little more. So the clavicle bones would be like here. That's what I'm trying to draw in. There they go right there. Okay, what we're going to do now is go to object mode. Zoom back, I'll hold the mouse button. Our pivot point is currently set to the 3D cursor. We're going to select here, and we're going to go back to the default pivot point, which is the medium point. Okay, I'm going to zoom back. We're going to select here. These are basically our shoulders. Let's zoom in. Let's go to edit mode. We'll select here. Press S to scale down. That circle that you see, by the way, is our proportional editing. I don't want that on, so I'm going to press O to turn that off. I could have clicked there as well. Press S to scale this down. We'll go back to object mode. Move this into place. Remember, the shoulders are interesting because I'll go to the right. They sit pretty much to the back here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to hold shift, press A, bring in a cube, move the cube back, bring it to the side. That's why this arm is out here, so you can basically work on the body without having the arm get in the way. We're going to hold shift, then press D to duplicate this cube. I'll left click to lock that cube in. Put this aside so we can use that to work on the hand. We'll select here. We'll add a subdivision surface of 2. We'll press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Zoom in. Hold Shift, press D, right click. Back to Reddit, did that by accident, the middle mouse button. Because we're in an orthographic view, we can press R to rotate this slightly. Okay, when you rotate non-orthographic view, typically it'll cause you issues. Things can get out of control very quickly. One of the main issues I had when I first started learning how to do 3D was being in regular 3D space, which when I say that, I mean non-orthographic space, whether it's right or front. When you're in a orthographic space, it's almost like you're kind of safe. You're not totally safe, but generally a right orthographic view, if I want to rotate, if I'm looking at a right orthographic view, I probably want to rotate like this. So anyway, with this selected, I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to hold control, press R, left click once. I can move it because I left click once. I left click a second time to lock that in. I'm going to go up here. If you want to, when you're in a right view, right? If I go to vertex select, I'm going to press B. Actually, you don't have to push that. That's from Blender before. I can left click and drag now, right? You would think I would select this entire bottom, right? Watch this. See that? Only these two are selected. These aren't selected. So when I go to move, thinking that this is, that'll cause me issues, right? I'll left click to deselect. Go to right to select. However, so what I can do is I can go to here, this viewport shape. What am I thinking? Okay. Wait a second. I can go to here, toggle X-ray. So now with this toggle X-ray button, watch this. Left click and drag. We'll turn to the side. The whole thing is selected like you want. So typically if you want to select both, and I know I told you about symmetry and all that. However, when you are selecting, I would recommend you turn this on. That's how I do it. Normally in Blender there's multiple ways to do it. That's my way of grabbing things like this. Anyway, I wanted to do that to go S to scale. Yep, all this talk just to do that, right? So same thing, I'm going to grab here, and I want to scale this down somewhat. Okay, we're going to go to object mode, select here. This still stays on even though we're coming out of this object. Sometimes in Blender, when you move from one object to another, things change. However, this is for, as far as I know, pretty much all the objects in object mode. We have this selected. So with that selected, we're going to go to the upper left. We're going to go to edit mode. We're going to do very similar. Hold control, press R, put a loop cut. Left click once. You can move it because you only left click once. I move this up. Left click again to lock it in. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Left click and drag to select this. Because I have that on, I'll select all four. Now I can press S to scale this down. Left click on nothingness to deselect. It's decent for what it is. I'll turn this actually off so you can see there's it looking more normal. We'll go to upper left, go to object mode. And when you're working on an arm, it's important to remember the shoulder. So what I'm going to do is, actually we'll move this up. So this is like a placeholder, basically a placeholder for the hand. We'll press S to scale on the X-axis. Like this. We'll hold Shift, press D, move this down. Hold Shift, select these both, scale down, move these up. Think of this as being like the palm, the finger, just as a placeholder. We'll hold Shift, select all of these together, push this over like that. Push this to the front like that. Go to the side. Remember what we did before with the leg? So what we'll do is we will go right to the shoulder, right? We're going to the shoulder because this is how your shoulder would rotate. We'll hold Shift, right click. We'll go to our transform pivot. We'll change this to the 3D cursor, and then we're in our front orthographic view, so we're fairly safe to Rotate. So we'll press R to rotate out like that. Shoulder, this needs to be underneath the shoulder. Press S to scale this down some. We'll take a look from here. The front view. S to scale. I'm going to left click to deselect. Okay, we have a point on the shoulder. We want to select this and then press R to rotate this. Left click to lock that in. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. That's generally how that should look. Okay, what we're going to do is I'll show you how you can take the modifier here and then apply that to the modifiers there. So what we're going to do is we'll select here, hold shift, still holding shift and clicking, right? So now I click this last, this here. This makes this the active object. Because that's the active object, now we should be able to press Control L. This brings up our link transfer data menu. And then see this copy modifiers. So because that last object already has the mirror modifier object on it, as well as the subdivision surface, all of the objects that we previously selected will have what's selected on the shoulder applied to them. And that's useful. Now you can see right here it got the hand there. But yeah, this is useful. It's useful because we have our reference drawing here, so we can adjust to this, as well as having the mirror on the other side now. I don't want the subdivision surface on our stand-in for the hands now. So selecting them and then selecting X to take the subdivision modifier off of the hands. I'm going to roll the mouse to zoom in. I'm going to select the hand and move this over. To adjust this, we can make this smaller, right? Currently, we have the pivot point set to the 3D cursor, right? We want to select here, change this back to Blender's default pivot point, which is the medium point. And then with that done, what we're going to do is, and this is useful for when you're getting a interesting situation. So what we're going to do is press S to scale, right? Now Blender is looking at this because this is the geometry that's actually there. This is actually the mirrored geometry, right? So we're going to press S to shrink this down, right? Now you see how this is making this shorter. Now what we can do now is we can press S on the Z axis. See how that line is going up and down? That line is showing us a preview line of what's going to happen, right? We don't want to scale that way because we want to make the arm go into basically the hand. So we press Z again and look at the preview line. So when you press the axis line twice, it basically goes along, your scale goes along the normal, which is what we want here. So we'll go like this, right? So now we want to I want to push this down, right? And see how this goes up and down, and then left and right. Still not what we want. However, what we can do is we can go to this orientation setting, which it's currently set for global. We can set this to normal, and look at that. Now we can take this and push this down here, looking for like the elbow area. So pretty decent. So we'll do the similar thing here. See the thickness here? That's what we're doing, is we're shrinking this down to try to like get rid of all of this right here. Remember what I told you in Blender, there's a lot of different ways to do things. A lot of times it's like, what is your philosophy of doing things? What are you trying to do? Most of the time my way is, as long as my videos it sounds funny, but most of the time my way is speed. That's what I'm thinking about. Anyway, I'm going to press S to scale, right? All right, just like before, we're going to, with this selected, we'll press S to scale on the Z axis. Look at that, because it's set for normal. Wait a second, I'll press S, Z. Oh, look at that. Since the orientation is set for normal, we don't have to press Z twice. I didn't know that. So I'm looking here. Taking a look at it. So in the middle mouse button, rotate. I moved this back, by the way, because basically what I was just thinking was I was like, oh, if I wanted, I could put a UV sphere for the elbow. And then I'm like, well, why do that? I can just push this back some and then, you know, use sculpting. This kind of gives me an elbow. So that's what I was just thinking when I push back like that. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate, go into the hand to pan. I'm going to zoom back by rolling the mouse. I'm going to select here. Pull this to the side like this. That up some. Because this leg is rotated out to the side, it's not going to quite match up. Into the front, let's see, I have to pull that over more like that. Okay, we're going to go to quickly make some hands. So we have the hand stand-ins, right? Let's make sure we're back to default. So remember, your default for your transform orientations is global. Your default for your pivot point is the median point. A lot of times it helps when you're working with a program to know where the defaults are at so you can get back to that, right? All right, your 3D cursor tends to come in, things come in from the center. So we're going to hold Shift, press C to put our 3D cursor right back to the center. We're going to hold Shift, press B, draw a zoom box to get right back. Now we're going to hold Shift, press A to bring in a cube. We'll move this cube off to the side like that. Okay, I'm going to go to the hand, left click and drag. I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier to the cube. I'm going to go, when we put the subdivision surface modifier on and roll the mouse wheel to zoom in, we can see this like rounded out the cube, right? I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. So we're going to act like this is the back part of the hand. This is the front part of the hand, right? As we work. If you zoom in, see how I'm rolling my mouse, right? Literally everything stops, right? Blender does this. To be honest, I'm not sure why it does this, but if this happens, if you can't zoom in any further, what you can do is go to cursor to selected. Wait a second. View to selected, sorry. And then that'll fix it. So view to selected. So anyway, what we want to do is press S to scale on the Y-axis. Remember I told you about not scaling on the orthographic axes. So if you look to the upper left, you can see we're in user perspective. So we're using the Y-axis here. So we're making the hand thinner, right? We're going back towards it. This will be the back of the hand. We're going to go to edit mode. We're going to hold control, press R, put a loop cut. We left click once. Because we left click once, we can move this loop cut. We'll move this up like this, not all the way to the top. Left click a second time to lock that in. This levels viewport we'll take this up to 2. So here's like our basic like hand. So imagine the fingers coming out here, the wrists coming out here, this being the back of the hand here, the palm of the hand here. Okay, we're going to go to the upper left, go to object mode. We can use this to make up most of the elements of our hand. So what we're going to do is hold Shift, press D, left click, we'll move this up. Like I said before, there's many ways of doing different things in Blender. This is my current way. I was watching GZR tutorial channel. He does like a beautiful blockouts and I'm looking at his hand. I like how he made the hand. I'll tend to switch around. His way of making a hand is currently my favorite. So, uh, yeah, we're gonna go through this relatively quickly. You're like, yeah, as long as you've been watching this video relatively quickly, right? That's the thought process I have in my head anyway to get through this. I mean, to be honest, it's like, when you're sitting there doing things like making a body, a hand, uh, it takes a while, if you're gonna try to explain it. Anyway. And for you guys that are like, why does he keep stopping? It helps me to keep going to make it through. My average, I was looking at my YouTube analytics. The average person who watched the videos on this channel stops at 5 minutes and 51 seconds. All right, so pretty much everything after that is the rare people that are keep watching them. Anyway, then I press S to scale on the X-axis. So we're thinking about making a finger, right? So from this, it doesn't look too much for off for this angle. Now we turn to the side. It's too much that way, so we're going to press S to scale on the Y-axis like that, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to Shift D, left click. We made a duplicate copy. We're going to move this up like that. Okay, so basically you can see how long this is, right? Basically the fingers are the length of the palm. Basically is a good way to go for the length of your fingers. Obviously this is longer. We're setting this up. We'll shrink it down once we get through this, right? So these are sections of the fingers, right? When you make fingers, you can make them having the actual 3 joints. So you can see we have 2 joints here. I find that working, I had talked about earlier about being a generalist. I find that making 2 joints instead of 3 actually tends to work better as far as making a hand. So that's what we're doing here. If you're like, why is there 2 joints instead of 3? All right. I used to make 3 joints. I find that 2 joints works, very well. So anyway, we're gonna go to edit mode, right? See this little part right here? What we're gonna do is we're gonna go to face select, hold Alt. We're gonna select this edge here. I didn't press anything yet. When I push this, all of this loop is going to be selected. That's what Alt does. I'm holding Alt. I'm going to left click. Now see how all of that was selected. That's good because that's what we want. Now I let go of Alt. I'm holding Shift. Select this top part. So I let go of Shift. All of this and the top part is currently selected. Okay, so what I want to do here is make this thicker. So if I press S to scale, this whole thing will scale. I don't particularly want this. I want this to be fatter. So there's a way of doing that in Blender. It's called Alt-S. So I'm going to hold Alt, then press S. It's a special kind of scaling that makes things fatter. All right. That's what I want. Made this bigger, but it also made this fatter as well. We're going to go to Edge Select. Select here. Oops. Pull this like this. There you go. Yeah, I like that. Push it that way slightly. And then go back to object mode. Okay, we're going to go to front view. We'll hold Shift. We'll move this down like this. We'll press just scale. We're in the orthographic view. You can look to the upper left and see that. So we're kind of safe, not totally safe, but kind of safe as far as just rotating without an axis. Scaling without an axis. I'm going to move this up. Select here. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click, move this over. Move this up some since the middle finger should be longest. So actually I'll select this, hold Shift. I'll move this down some like that. Okay, I'll select here, hold Shift. Hold Shift, press D to duplicate, left click to lock that in, move this to the side. This should be not as long as that. Push this slightly over. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, left click. When I'm duplicating here, basically what I'm thinking is I'm thinking about making the fingers as well as what it would be like to rig this in the future as well. Okay, I'm also thinking as I work on this, like fingers are too close together. When you remesh, they'll basically join together, which you don't want. Easy way we can rotate these from each other is we can go to the transform pivot point. Remember, default is the median point. We'll go to the 3D cursor. We'll come down here. We'll hold shift, right click. We're in the front orthographic view, makes it very easy for us to put the pivot point here. Because the pivot point's here, now we can select here. Hold shift, which allows us to select more than one object at a time. Press R, rotate to the side. We'll hold shift. Actually, let's leave that there for now. We'll select here, hold shift, select there. Now we'll hold shift. We held shift so we can select more than one object at the same time. We'll right click here. Now we can rotate this out to the side like that. Let's hold shift. Well, let's select here, select there. Now hold shift and press right. Shift right moves the 3D cursor. We rotate this out to the side like that. Let's actually push that over some. This, we can see how this is like, this is supposed to be pinky. This is out too far. What we can do is we can go to here, set the, this is the transform orientation, set this to normal. And then I'll actually change this back to median point so it doesn't confuse you. Now we can push this in like that. See that? Okay, remember how we're choosing to work right now is that this is the back of the hand, right? I'm going to go here, change this back to its default setting, which is global. So we'll select here, hold shift, select here. This is going to be for the thumb. Hold shift, press D, left, click, and then move this down, push this out to the side. Hold shift, press R, go to here, which is the pivot point, set this to 3D cursor, press R to rotate that out to the side like that. Okay, so remember this is the back of the hand. I keep saying that because it is important. We're going to go to here, right? We're going to select here, hold shift, press D, right click. We made a duplicate of this. We're going to move the duplicate like this. Let's go to back view. We're in a back orthographic view, so we can rotate. Oops, we are rotating on the 3D cursor, so let's change this back to median point, which is the default pivot point. There we go. Then what we're going to do is hold shift to select these other pieces. So, okay. Yeah, we want these all selected. Move this forward like this. I'm going to hand the pivot. We're off the orthographic view. Remember that. We can go right back to it by selecting back. Let's select this. Hold shift. We'll press D to duplicate. We'll right click to get that to stay in place. We'll move this up to here. We'll press S to scale this up to here like this. We'll hold shift. We'll press D. Left click. We'll move this down. Press R to rotate like this. Kind of like the meat of the hands, if you will. That's the scale on the Z-axis. We're in the back orthographic, but didn't necessarily have to scale on the X-axis. I'll press R to rotate there. I'll select here. Okay, so here we'll press S to scale on the Z-axis like this to make this much fatter. see this here, the head's in the way. See how this is like separated probably too much? What we want to do is like push this into the hand more. Or you know what, instead of doing that, we'll press S to scale on the Y-axis. So see how I'm scaling from here to here? Doing that to push this more into the hand to make this, so I'm thinking about when we remesh. Okay, I'm going to select all of the hand here, right? I'm going to click apply. So all of the modifiers are selected. I'm going to select the whole hand, hold shift, the main part to make that active. Then I'm going to press Control J to join that hand all together to make it easier to work with. Okay, what we're going to do now is hold Control, press, oops, there we go. Hold Control, press A. And then we're going to select, this brings up our apply menu. If we don't do this, we'll tend to have issues when we go to sculpt. And we went over this earlier in the tutorial. So we're going to select all transforms. We'll select here. We'll go to scope mode. What? Did I not? I thought I just applied this. Control A. All transforms. Okay. Okay, so when we click elastic transform, we go over to our tool options, and in advanced we should see we have our topology, mesh boundary. That'll make things easier for us. So basically what we want to do is I'm going to press F. We're in elastic deform. I'm adjusting these shapes to make them not look so cube-like, if you will. Rotating the, oops. Careful where you grab. You can look down at your own hand and kind of see, like, I want this part here to be fatter. I'm looking at my own hand. This part here is like fatter where it connects onto my thumb. There's kind of like a bump, kind of like here, it kind of goes along with that. This goes in. This here doesn't, you know, need to be super like thick, if you will. This like meaty part on the side does what does kind of come out. Oops. Same thing with like this here. This doesn't need to be. When we remesh this, this will be like one piece. Hands are a thing in themselves, which can take a long time. It's not much easier to deal with sculpting, actually, making hands in one sense. Like, well, in sculpting, it's nice that you can take different shapes and basically make something from them. So away. As I'm largely thinking about like what is going to happen as far as the I'm holding the middle mouse button, rotate, when we remesh, because this will be all one shape. I think I do want to make the fingers fatter, so we can go to the flake brush pretty easily. Fatten fingers up some there. Look from this angle. I'm just left clicking and dragging. I'm looking at my hand right now. I'm looking how far this comes out. So I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to make sure I'm on face select. In edit mode, we have vertex select, edge select, face select. I'm going to hover here, press L, go to back view, move this over and in, over and in. Okay, we'll go right back to sculpt mode. Took a look just by rotating the mouse with the middle mouse button. Okay, let's put this hand into position. So we're going to go to the upper right, go to object mode. We'll select front, go to front view. We'll move this over. See this dot right here? When we rotate, this will rotate around that dot. I'd rather rotate it like I would normally expect it. So this dot is the origin point. We want the origin point to be on the hand. To do that, we're going to go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry, and now the origin point is there. We'll move this down. I'm going to press R to rotate. We're able to rotate without axes because we're in our front orthographic as far as that rotation. However, we are about to use an axis. Press R to rotate slightly more. We're going to press R to rotate, Z, -90, then press enter. Decent way to get this into position easier for us, to make getting it into position easier for us. Okay, I'm going to hold shift, press B. This is how we can zoom in by drawing this zoom box, right? Pretty useful. We have this set on a decent angle, so we're going to press R to rotate like this. So now we'll put this in position. We can see this is far too big. I'll hold the middle mouse button so you can see what's going on. Actually, we'll press S to scale. We can see it like that. Go back to front view, and we'll move this back into position. When I say position, touching the wrist. And this is actually smaller than the than these two boxes. Pay attention to this finger more than this. I like how this is. You can see from this view that this is too far out, so we'll push this over like that. Since we have this here now, and this is generally the size we want, and you can see here, like, I want this to be smaller than this actually, but this was nice to, you know, help us to get this in a position. So now we'll select here, we'll press X, press delete to get rid of that. We'll select here, press X, delete to get rid of that. Now I'm gonna zoom back, go back to front view. There we go, I'll select the hand to pivot. Okay, we want to mirror this hand to the other side, so we'll select the hand. We'll go to, looks like the wrench, add a modifier. The mirror modifier we'll select here. We'll press S to select the sphere, and now the hand is how we want it to be, which is on both sides. Okay, we're going to zoom in. We're going to select here. Select the hand to pan. You can see here, let's match that up by pushing this down some, over some like that. We're going to go to sculpt mode. We're going to apply the subdivision surface on the right hand, the screen I'm looking at. We're going to go to the elastic deform. We're going to adjust this, pulling that out, trying to keep that point there. I'm actually going to hold control, hold shift. So this is what I held control and press shift, right? So what I did was I put a mask over this. This darkened area you see is protected from when I grab and move. I didn't want to lose like that point there. So now with that done, I can grab here, move this over, move this back without you know, being too concerned about that. Pull this, shrink my brush forward some like this. I'm going to hold Alt, then press M. That took off the mask. I'm going to adjust this here. Okay, we're about to join a bunch of pieces to the body. Let's go to the upper left, go to object mode. I want to have the ear here, and this is from the previous tutorial. I want this switched from the cube to the sphere, so I'm going to press S. So the sphere is basically the head, right? So I have this, when I scroll down here, see this eye, I have this arrow here. When I turn that on, the arrow, when the arrow's on, you can select. When the arrow's off, you can't select. So I'm going to select the eye. Same thing, I'm going to click here, press S, and change this to the sphere. I did this because I want to bring the neck in. These were mirroring off the neck. When I say bring the neck in, I'm talking about connecting it to the body. Okay, so what we're going to do is select here, hold shift, select here, as well as here, as well as here. I'm going to select apply. So all of these are now, the modifiers are applied. We're not going to join the hands just yet. We'll select this. This is now the active object. You can tell because the highlighted orange color. Okay, with all those things selected, we're going to hold Control, then press J. So now they're all one with the body. Okay, we're going to go to, actually let's hold Control, press A. Here we go, Control A. And then we'll, this is our apply menu, so we'll select apply all transforms. So now we'll select the body, go to the upper left, and we'll go to scope mode. Okay, what we want to do here is remesh the body. Before we do that, I'm going to hold shift. Let's move this out. We'll redo that. We'll redo this in a better way, I should say. So what we're going to do is hold shift, press R. Just let us see our resolution. I'm fine with that for now. We'll hold Control, press R. We remeshed, and now these objects, these pieces are actually joined together. Okay, the plan is to quickly go through, add some things we need, change some things. So one of the things right here is I'm going to use the blob brush for this. This muscle, there's a muscle that goes right here. Well, the chest muscle goes right from here. It basically goes into the shoulder there. I'm going to hold Control here. Shift. I'm tapping smooth here. All right. Hold shift to smooth this out here. And we're going to look to here, the center line. Let's put a center line going down. I'm going to press F. I have the crease brush selected, by the way. Putting this center line going straight down. This line right here, I look to this line, go up about an inch, and then right here, it's kind of like around the area the belly button should be in. So I want this line to be locked in, so to say. So I'll hold Control, press R to remesh again. Okay, let's go to the blob brush. I like the blob brush. Probably said it before. Actually, I'm almost positive I said it before. Imagine a line coming from the ear going down to about here is where these muscles are pretty straight coming down right from the neck. And basically what they do is they point to the clavicle bones. So the clavicle bones kind of go like this. Press F. Like that. Then they curve up and go over like this. We can come back and refine this and don't let this, get you too much like as far as exact. Just like how before we place things, now we're like, changing them. It's fine. And you can overdo it because we're planning to put a smooth one here. Smooth modifier is what I'm talking about. Okay, we're going to hold them the mouse button. The clavicle bones kind of come out like diagonal down here, and then they kind of form a triangle up there. So I'm going to go to the clay strips, take the hand to pan up, zoom in. So see this here? It's like kind of go like this. They diagonally point up here. Then they kind of like help to form this triangle shape here. Smooth that out a little there. Hold the mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, you can see we're jumping around. Like I said, smooth brush will help out a lot, tends to help out a lot. So I want to put more of a bicep muscle here, right? So we look to the tools here. So I'm going to go to clay strips, right? There we go. See this in advanced front faces only. If I click here, we should be safe to sculpt. If I didn't click this front faces only, most likely the whole arm would be distorted. As a matter of fact, let's hold control, hold shift. Kind of like drawing around that slightly point there. Didn't want that. Actually, what am I doing? That is fine. So control shift. We'll add to this. And the reason why it's fine, we'll hold control shift. Is what we'll do is we'll hold control, press I to invert, right? So now we have this, remember we have this front faces only. If you're having issues with what we're about to do here, it's probably because you don't have this selected, and this is the tool that's over to the right. Looks like little tools, right? It's under the advanced tab, and then you go down, check mark next to front faces, all right? So with that done, we have the clay strips brush on, so I'm just making basically a strip here for the bicep. Just up and down, right? I'll do similar thing for the tricep. And this should help us not mess up too much. We can look over here and see like basically what's going on as well. That mask protects us. I'm left clicking. I find that if you want to do subtle smoothing, left clicking tends to help. You need drastic smoothing, then you tend to drastic smoothing, you click and drag. So I'm going to hold Alt, then press M to take away that mask. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button. Right here, there's kind of like almost like an H shape that forms here. So I'm going to put here. The crease brush go here. Daggone it. Crease brush. There's like a line that goes right through the knee, and then there's kind of like I'm holding control to make this line come out. It's kind of like an H that forms the back of the knee. All right, so what we're going to do now is let's we have this here. Just wanted this to be slightly more, come out more. I'm gonna blob brush. Click here. I'm gonna go to my front faces only for the blob brush. Kind of thinking of the bone come in here, but our resolution is fairly low, which actually is not it's not an undesirable thing. It actually helps us in a sense. Okay, we're going to go to front view, go to our elastic deform, and we'll zoom in and adjust our reference. Press F. And in like that. Pull this down like this. Push that down. Push this in like here, like there. Take the hand to pan up. Go to the right view. And here. Push this down here. Bring that up there. Push this in here. Push this in there. Push that in. Hold them in the mouse button to rotate back to the front. Okay, we're going to zoom in, so let's go back to the reference again. So we'll make, at this point, you want to kind of push-pull and not so much like be alarmed with how much you're pushing and pulling things, if that makes sense. I find that sometimes like you're almost like afraid. I'm almost afraid to I don't know, go ahead and push pull things. So I kind of have to like almost overdo it to just get myself like, look, this is the time. Like it's, or we're going to put the smooth modifier on. I'm holding control, making this deeper. Like I said, we're about to put the smooth modifier on there. When we do, a lot of this stuff is going to smooth out. So taking the crease brush, I'm basically emphasizing this here. I'm going to go back to the elastic deform brush. I press F to increase the size of my brush. Back to the front. I want this to come down more, this being the rib cage, more than is in the reference. Smooth. The rib cage, it should almost come down to kind of like that, this point here where like the hips come out. Let's go back to front. It's not gonna match up the rib cage here. Don't want it to be too much past that. And if you're like, well, why didn't you find a reference? I think this is because it's leaned back so far. It's wasn't enough, I don't think. Enough down, enough ribcage showing. That's what I mean. Okay, I'm gonna go to the crease brush. It's got bent here, so we could have stopped that by using a mask, but it's not that difficult to deal with, so. This is the crease brush, kind of like redoing the line, if you will. So I'm gonna spot smooth, I guess I would call it. I'm not clicking and dragging, I'm holding shift and I am left clicking areas that I definitely want to be smoothed out. For here I want this to be defined. Not so much of that. So much. So I'm trying to kind of like pre get ready for the smooth modifier to be applied. Just hold the middle mouse button to rotate. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that smooth modifier. So we'll click here, select smooth. This factor, we'll change this to 1. We'll change this repeat to 28. See what I meant? So you might sit there and say, well, if you smooth that much, why even put the stuff there in the first place? A lot of the female form, I find it's almost like hinting at things, and the best way to get that kind of hinting is putting the form there and then smoothing it out. So we'll apply that. Then we'll come back here, and I'm going to hold Shift, press R, take the resolution up. I'm looking at the squares, not so much the number. I'll hold Control, press R. It took us up to 87,000. I'm going to press Shift, press R, go up even higher. Control R. Took us up to 120,000. 121,000 something. So now we'll go to our crease. Add some more of our detail back in. This here, we'll smooth that out. We'll go to the draw brush, zoom in here, press F to make our brush much smaller. Oops. Draw sharp, we don't want that. Hope you can see how much, more clear that is with the increased resolution. So this we want to go almost straight over like this. Then this goes up and then over to here. So even with this higher resolution, we still can kind of overdo things and use the smooth brush again. So we're using the crease brush here, crease brush here, crease brush here, and we kind of like use what we saw before, what we had before to put these lines in. And when we used the crease brush before, we used it in a very large way, like a lot of smoothing. We don't have to use it in a way where it's that much. And like I said, I'm going to hold Control here. Clavicle bones kind of like point there, go up there kind of like that. I'll zoom in here, use the crease brush on the edge like that. Use it here. I'll hold Control, use it here. Hold Control, we'll use it here. I'm actually let's use a clay strips brush here. Kind of emphasizing this shoulder muscle. I actually am dragging now. The more resolution you use, by the way, you'll also find that the smooth brush, you might, it's less effective, if that makes sense. Arms too slim for me. So if you look, I was telling you about the tools. I don't have the front faces on. Trying to be careful and look around as I work. I also think the higher resolution makes it easier to work. Thinking of the elbow right there. Shift to smooth this out here. I'm going to zoom in, use the hand. For the knee here, I'm going to crease brush, shrink the brush, and then go across like that. Kind of go across the center like this. And in. Well, shift to kind of smooth that out. Let's go to the modifier brush, put in smooth. We'll change the factor to 1. Let's change the repeat to 10. Let's change it to 20. $28. We'll apply that. Okay, there's more work to be done on this. When I started working on the head, I figured we'd go on to the body, and I talked about going through the full process. I would like to keep doing that, so I guess this is going to be officially part 2. I'll probably put part 1 on the original tutorial, and the way I make tutorials, it's kind of hard to see how long they are, but I have an idea. This is pretty long already, so I think I'm going to call this part 2, post this up, and then we'll continue working on this in the future. Okay, if you made it this far, congratulations. The average viewer, I believe, makes it 5 minutes and 51 seconds into the tutorial. I know they're long tutorials, so again, congratulations. Thanks for watching this long. I hope you learned something. For all of those of you out there who like these very long tutorials and like them and share them, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And if you are new to this channel, if you like tutorials like this and you would like to see more, please subscribe, and thank you for watching.